Good to see you, you bet. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Benny.
You bet.
Thank you.
She lost control there.
Well, just business as usual. I hope I don't have too many things that are going to be stressful for 2 or 3 months at least.
Some of it is, some of it isn't, but it's all been, it's an exciting job. It's helping people. It's hard starting a new job. As far as working with all men, I don't know, it's kind of strange. I don't really think about working with all men or if I worked with all women. It's just I'm working with people, and it really doesn't, I don't think about it that way.
These protesters are afraid for their jobs and their cities. What frightens them is the Reagan administration's plan to cut millions of dollars out of federal urban programs. That worries some Oklahoma City officials too, but they're not taking to the streets in protest. Yesterday they joined nearly 4,000 colleagues at an uptown Washington hotel for the League of Cities National Conference. The big issue is revenue sharing, urban America's favorite kind of federal aid, since the money comes with very few strings attached. If the president gets his cut, says city manager David Pence, Yukon residents will end up paying for it.
So that means we're going to have to cut our operating expenses back. Either that or go back to the public and say, hey, we need some more money.
From Monday's mass meetings, the Oklahomans headed up Capitol Hill to lobby their congressman. But in Washington, the political process isn't conducted entirely over desktops and lecterns. The Oklahoma Municipal League brought its members to an evening reception in a House office building where they could mix with lawmakers in a more comfortable setting. Councilman Jerry Gilbert says he's not comfortable trying to save revenue sharing with a political hard sell.
I've never been quite so gung-ho about getting Congress to give us money.
Councilman Jack Cornett agrees and doesn't think federal budget cuts should mean higher local taxes.
And we have learned not to depend on U.S. government, and so we're probably in better shape than a lot of cities in the United States.
But Council newcomer Jackie Carey wonders how Oklahoma City could ever do without revenue sharing's contribution to the municipal budget.
$8.8 million is a considerable lump of money.
Worried city officials may get their way on Capitol Hill. A Senate committee has voted to preserve revenue sharing at half its current funding. The House is likely to be at least as generous. In Washington, Scott Libben, News 4.
Granted certiorari, that is, they agreed to hear the case. We filed on behalf. It means a victory for freedom of expression to everybody in Oklahoma. It specifically means freedom of expression for people in our public school system who have a right to speak now positively on issues concerning sexual preference. This does not mean that anybody has a right to inject sex into a classroom where it has no proper place.
just heard the glass break, the window break out, and I come running up front, and my mom was standing there in the kitchen just kind of shaking, kind of in shock. I just grabbed her. We grabbed her 2 dogs, and we headed towards the back door to dive off in the cellar. And I went to open the back door, and I couldn't hardly get it open. When I finally did get it open, it was just, you couldn't stand up when you stuck your head out. And I just happened to look up, and I seen the tail end of the twister heading north, just over the top of our trailer.
Last December, Oklahoma City police officer Doug Burnett shot 22-year-old Reva Lee in the neck as she drove her car in the Windsor Hills shopping center. The policeman claimed he fired the fatal shot after the victim tried to run him down with her car. The patrolman said he thought Miss Lee or her passengers had shoplifted some merchandise from a local TG&Y store. A few weeks following the shooting, the Oklahoma City police chief ruled Officer Burnett had acted properly.
His life was endangered. It was obvious from the statements we received from the people involved that the act was intentional on the driver's part and that she did intend to run over the officer.
Our version of it is that the car didn't get out of control until after she had a bullet in her neck, a .357 Magnum bullet.
The shooting victim's father today filed a $4 million lawsuit claiming Officer Burnett violated Reva Lee's constitutional rights. The suit cites yesterday's Supreme Court ruling which outlaws the shooting of fleeing felons.
The Supreme Court yesterday in Memphis Police Department versus Garner held that this was an unreasonable seizure of the worst kind, of the ultimate kind. It's a seizure that's irrevocable. It's a seizure by death.
In addition to the $4 million in damages, the lawsuit also seeks to strike down the Oklahoma City Police Departments and the state's fleeing felon laws. The lawsuit claims that yesterday's Supreme Court ruling means those laws are unconstitutional. Scott Wallace, News 4 at the Federal Courthouse.
Josie Bauman has cancer. Her illness has confined her to a bed. Now, Josie knows she's facing the inevitable end to her life, and she has signed a living will, so that when that time comes, she wants to be able to die naturally. No life support systems, no cancer therapy. But living wills aren't binding in Oklahoma. Any doctor or family member can keep a terminally ill patient alive artificially, despite the patient's wishes. Elderly Oklahomans who want to change this pack the gallery of the State House today. They want the right to die. A proposed law would give them that right, only if 2 doctors diagnose their ailment as a terminal disease. Then they would be able to sign a living will, allowing them to die naturally. Lexington Democrat Cal Hobson is sponsoring the bill.
It will formalize for our citizens a process for them to follow, and for doctors to follow, and for families to follow when each of us face our moment of death.
But there are others who disagree. They claim this proposed law is unnecessary.
So Frank, they already have the right to do this. And if they already have the right, then surely we're not abrogating to them some sort of natural God-given right to refuse medical care. They already have that under the standard medical practice in this country and certainly in this state.
The opposition's arguments fell upon deaf ears, and the Right to Die bill was approved in the House by a 3-to-1 vote. The state's medical community has yet to endorse this bill, but key supporters say once they jump on the bandwagon, that Oklahoma will join 20 other states in getting a Right to Die law. At the state capitol, Stephanie Frederick, News 4.
I'm convinced that peer pressure, being part of the group, is one of the most powerful forces with which we all have to deal. We all have this insatiable need to be accepted. Now, this is a common problem for all of us, but for youngsters, especially teenagers, it's really a tough issue. There's no question peer pressure is one of the major factors that contribute to adolescent drug use. And because of the easy accessibility of certain products, sniffing has become a major concern in cities all over the country.
We're literally talking about ingesting, in any given amount, a toxin to the nervous system. That these compounds are poisons.
The typical sniffer uses substances such as aerosol cans that contain fluorinated or chlorinated hydrocarbons. One of the most notorious ingredients in these spray cans is known as toluene.
When this toluene and the chemicals in the products they sniff get to their brain, you know, it destroys their thinking, it destroys their judgment.
To say that sniffing is a health hazard is the most gross understatement that I could make. One of the terrible and scary things about it is you get no free tries. Every time you sniff it, from number 1 on, the damage starts to occur. Among other things, sniffing these substances can just ruin one's judgment. So much, in fact, that people become violent and destructive. This is not only a terrible health hazard, it's a menacing social problem. We'll talk about it more later. I'm Dr. Red Duke. There's nothing at all new about the concept of sniffing or inhaling substances to get a sense of euphoria or an instant high. I'm sure you remember when sniffing airplane glue was a common practice. Well, there's a bunch of things in your house right now that are just as dangerous and being used for that purpose. This is an extremely dangerous pastime. The body simply wasn't designed to be drenched in organic solvent.
Number 1, and I think the most serious problem, is that the brain cells are destroyed.
Likewise, these solvents play havoc with the pulmonary system because of the manner in which they're taken in.
There is also a risk of sudden death associated with any inhalant abuse. Now, we've just listed some of the major physiological or body function complications. But let me also emphasize that getting involved with inhalants can do irreparable damage to one's personality.
The idea of apathy, or that you're kind of washing out the personality. People many times will become more careless, lackadaisical, will not care about things.
A chemically addicted person gets to the point where their only purpose in living is to get that chemical into his or her body. Now, if you notice a serious change in personality in a child, like withdrawal from friends or family, it's time to take stock. Early intervention could save that child's life as well as that of the whole family. Because, you know, this is a family problem, not just one individual. I'm Dr. Red Duke. Just by their very nature, teenagers are going to experiment with life. They're going to try a lot of different things. Unfortunately, chemicals are one of the things with which they get involved. Now, as parents, we have to accept the reality of the fact that it's not just their problem, it's our problem. Pilar Perez can tell you a little bit about it. At the age of 16, her son started sniffing spray paint.
Seriously, he became a total stranger to us, to his family. His personality, his character, his appearance, everything changed because of sniffing.
What are some of the signs? Decreased interest in school, change in attitude, social withdrawal, and so forth. It's also been shown that about 1/5 of the people who experiment with inhalants do in fact develop a chronic chemical dependency. Open honesty with feelings in the family are the only way to either avoid or recover from such a problem.
Kids are very special. They're little individuals who should feel very good about themselves and who they are. And they should feel so good about themselves that any time anyone comes to them and offers them a joint, a pill, a sniff out of a can, be strong enough to say no.
Obviously, the best way to deal with a drug problem is to avoid it in the first place. Well, how do you avoid it? It's not easy. The single most important thing I can say is that we must be sure our families affirm these children and let them know that they are very, very important. But if they do get involved, all is not lost. Through intensive individual, group, and family therapy, everyone can be recovered. I'm Dr. Red Duke.
On March the 3rd, around 8 o'clock in the evening, a black female entered the jewelry store of J.C. Penney's at Crossroad Mall. The female suspect in her 20s, approximately 5'5", 120 pounds, short hair, with a scar or a birthmark over her right eye, then asked to see a tray of rings. The sales lady saw a black male in his 20s, about 5'9", 170 pounds. She heard a noise and she put the trays that she had been showing back in the case. When she looked up, the two suspects had disappeared, along with approximately $10,000 worth of jewelry. The Larceny Division of the Oklahoma City Police Department believe these two suspects are involved in possibly 2 other crimes. So if you have any information about this crime or any other serious crime, contact Crimestoppers at 235-7300. All callers will remain anonymous, and you could earn up to a $1,000 reward. For Crimestoppers, thank you. I'm Detective Ken Smith.
It's been 3.5 years since a couple of teenagers were snatched from the Oklahoma State Fair. The widely publicized abduction helped spur a new state law requiring authorities to file missing persons reports within 72 hours.
Those are frightening.
Federal, state, and local authorities hope to find even more missing children by encouraging investigators to enter missing persons reports immediately into a nationwide computer system.
We'd like to see the day come again in the state of Oklahoma where a child could walk to school without the parents being in fear of something happening.
Lawmen say the first few hours of a missing persons investigation are the most important.
Just a few hours, a person can be across the United States and out of sight. And I think now it's more critical than it was even 5, 10, 20 years ago.
The state fair abductions gave parents a new awareness of the dangers their children may face. Law enforcement authorities are hoping the new nationwide computer system will be a tool which will help them bring some of those missing children home. Scott Wallace, News 4.
So put it right down there at the bottom, and I did last time, but I kept it in like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Here we go.
Are you doing anything on it now?
Okay, going in.
Just a minute, they'll let you know. They brought them in, I think, this time.
Springtime. No one can deny its beauty or its uplifting effect on our spirits, but there are many who can testify to some less positive effects of the season. Many of the beautiful trees release bothersome pollens. We end up here in search of the cure, the magic medicine to make the sniffles, sneezes, wheezes, and alike go away. And most of the over-the-counter antihistamines do just that, but they do it temporarily. The only long-term relief comes in the form of an MD.
For years, this has been done by taking allergy injections that actually you're giving the person a mixture of what they are allergic to that you found out from various types of tests they're allergic to, starting with a small dose and each week increasing that dosage until the person starts getting used to it and can therefore be around it.
For those of you who are needle shy, new oral versions of the allergy shots are being developed. For now, though, maybe the slight sticks would be worth it to avoid the endless bouts with springtime sniffles. Dan Slocum, News 4.
It's possible that other contributing factors may have had some minor effects, such as runoff from heavy fertilizing, the sewage I'd mentioned. These may have all combined, along with a warm weather spell, to contribute to this situation.
Some literature. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It's about the Federal Reserve. You're welcome. Can I give you some literature?
I'm challenging the IRS to indict me in order to give the question of whether wages are taxable a good hearing in the court process.
The gamut of this grand jury's investigation has taken on new perimeters. Originally convened in March to look into a welfare department dispute, it's now spread its investigation to the Oklahoma Corrections Department. The head of that domain, Larry Meacham, has been ordered to provide information detailing all of the county's correction centers, who's in them, and for what.
In the past, it has not been done, but as we read the statute, the grand jury is required not only to check all county jails, but all public prisons within the county, and we interpret that to mean any person incarcerated in Oklahoma County.
And so why has Mr. Meacham been subpoenaed?
We have no idea. We have no way of knowing how many prisoners there are in Oklahoma County or where they're held by the Department of Corrections. We are aware of all locations of the jail, and we have checked them. So we have subpoenaed Mr. Meacham to bring the records as to the public prisons within the county and all persons incarcerated in the county.
Public prisons meaning community treatment centers. Macy says the grand jury will get to the issue of house arrest, which has recently come under fire by state legislators. It's an honor system that allows selected inmates to live at home and work while serving their prison term.
Nonviolent crime, quote unquote, is up about 18% in my county this year as a result, I think, a direct result of house arrest and the nonviolent offender program. I believe that when persons commit crime, they should be incarcerated.
We spoke with Larry Meacham by telephone this afternoon. He declined to be interviewed. He did say, though, that he was surprised by the subpoena and would talk with his lawyer. He deferred any comments, though, until after he's spoken with the grand jury. Terry Cook, News 4.
We've got a refinery that's been closed down about the past 4 years, and we didn't know whether the tanks carried product or how much product was in the tanks. We had a large amount of fire involving a refinery. That's the reason that we called our hazardous materials unit, the reason that we summoned additional assistance initially.
They're digging up a lot of ground around 23rd and North Broadway to make room for the Central Expressway. But in doing so, construction crews are also digging into the profits of some area businesses. The project is expected to take 4 months, but after only 2 weeks, some stores are already feeling the pinch, and they know there's not a lot they can do about it. The construction has left some businesses nearly isolated, and while there is a way to get to all of the stores here, the signs have customers so confused, some just avoid shopping in the area altogether.
24, 25, 30, and 10 makes 40.
Are you wanting to get back up to 36 in Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay, you need to go back out here to 24th Street and then head south on Robinson to 22nd Street. Take Robinson Street to 22nd and down to Broadway Extension, cut right in front of the fire department, and then just head north on Broadway Extension to 36, and that'll get you back up to where you want to go.
That's how it's been recently for Jim Vilwalk. He not only has to give his customers complicated directions to his store, he has to do it again to get his customers home again. Vilwalk is manager of Tandy Leather Company, and his business has been off 33% since the construction started. And he's had to put up his own signs to get customers in.
I just keep telling my regional manager about this, and he wants to know why the sales are down, and I keep telling him why, and he can't believe it'd make that much difference, but it has.
Right now, Vilwalk's store is open in the front, but soon that too will be blocked off. Fortunately, he has an entrance in the back on 24th Street. But even so, he and other businessmen here have learned road progress definitely has its price. Jeff Fowler, News 4.
For the jury analysis, it was a fairly simple issue, whether or not it was a crooked business deal or a legitimate business deal. The unusual twist in the case is that he was charged under an extortion statute, which primarily involves making a threat, and he had said on tape repeatedly that I'm not threatening you. The government took the position that he was employing a technique known as veiled threats or implied threats, and that legitimate businessmen don't repeatedly have to tell their customers, I'm not threatening you in order to get your business.
Morning, and they were talking about something else.
What was that? That was out on the NME, just Oklahoma City or Oklahoma State. I'm sure that they have been planning
this program for some time, and Baptist Medical Center will not play a role in hindering or discouraging the growth of any other cardiac transplantation centers. And in fact, we're going to be working cooperatively with other institutions to develop a better donor awareness program throughout the state to make sure that organs are readily available to centers that have transplantation programs.